I'm doing an Israel-Palestine debate next week. But I have to ask you just your thoughts, maybe even from a U.S. perspective. What do you think about Hamas attacks on Israel? What would be the right thing for Israel to do? And what's the right thing for U.S. to do in this? If you're looking at the geopolitics of it.
I mean, it's not a topic that I get into a lot because I'm a non-expert. And because I'm not, unlike every other American, I'm not emotionally invested in other countries just in general. I mean, I admire them or not, and I love visiting them. I love Jerusalem, probably my favorite city in the world. But I don't have an emotional attachment to it. So maybe I've got more clarity. I don't know, maybe less. Here's my view. I believe in sovereignty, as mentioned, and I think each country has to make decisions based on its own interest, but also with reference to its own capabilities and its own long-term interest. And it's very unwise for, I'm not a huge fan of treaties. Some are fine, too many bad. But I think U.S. aid, military aid to Israel and the implied security guarantees, some explicit, but many implied security guarantees of the United States to Israel probably haven't helped Israel that much long-term. You know, it's a rich country with a highly capable population. Like every other country, it's probably best if it makes its decisions based on what it can do by itself. So I would definitely be concerned if I lived in Israel, because I think, fair or unfair, and really this is another product of technology, social media, public sentiment in that area is boiling over. And I think it's going to be hard for some of the governments in the region, Jordan, Egypt, Turkey, to contain their own population. They don't want conflict with Israel at all. They were all pretty psyched, actually, for the trend in progress, the Saudi peace deal, which was never signed, but would have been great for everybody. Because like trade, peace, normal relations, like that's good. Okay, let's just say. I know John Bolton doesn't like it, but it's good. And it's kind of what we should be looking for. But now it's not possible. And, you know, if you had like a coalition of countries against Israel, I know Israel has nuclear weapons and has a capable military and all that, and the backing of the United States, but like it's a small country. I think I'd be very worried. So there's that. And I don't see any advantage in to the United States. I mean, I think it's important for each country to make its own decisions.
But it also is a place, like you said, where things are boiling over and it could spread across multiple nations into a major military conflict.
Yeah, well, I think very easily could happen. In fact, probably right after Ramadan, if I had to guess. And yeah, I pray it doesn't. But again, I don't think you can overstate the lack of wisdom, weakness, short-term thinking of American foreign policy leadership. These are the architects of the Iraq War, of the totally pointless destruction of Libya, totally pointless destruction of Syria, and the 20-year occupation of Afghanistan that resulted in a return to the status quo. So like of the Vietnam War, their track record of the Korean War, even going back 80 years, is uninterrupted failures, one after the other. So I just don't have any confidence in those leaders to improve. When was the last time they improved another country? Can you think of that? Oh, the Marshall Plan. Well, you look at Europe now and you're like, I don't know, if that worked. But even if it did work, again, 80 years ago. So when was the last country American foreign policymakers improved? So if I were, Netanyahu's in a very difficult place politically, impossible. I mean, I'm glad I'm not Netanyahu. And I'm not sure he's capable of making wise long-term decisions anyway. But if I was just like an Israeli, I'd be like, I don't know if I want like all this help and guidance. So yeah, I actually think it's worse than just having just returned from the Middle East and talking to a lot of pretty open-minded sort of pro-Israeli Arabs who want stability above all. The merchant class always wants stability. So I'm on their side, I guess. And they're like, man, this could get super ugly super fast. American leadership is completely absent. It's just all posturing. It's like people like Nikki Haley. You just wonder, like, how does an advanced civilization promote someone like Nikki Haley to a position of authority? It's like, what? Shh. Adults are talking. Nikki Haley, please go away. Like that would be the appropriate response, but everyone's so intimidated to be like, oh, she's a strong woman. She's so transparently weak and sort of ridiculous and doesn't know anything. And it's just like thinks that jumping up and down and making these absurd blanket statements, repeating bumper stickers is like leadership or something. It's like a self-confident, advanced society would never allow Nikki Haley to advance. I mean, she's really not impressive. Sorry.
I just feel like you hold back too much and don't tell us what you really think.
Sorry.
So I think you just should speak your mind more often.
These are not, I mean, you can completely disagree with my opinions, but in the case of Nikki Haley, it's not like an opinion formed just from watching television, which I don't watch. It's an opinion formed from knowing Nikki Haley. So,
strong words from Tucker.
Well, felt too. Well, the world's in the balance. I mean, it's not just like,
this is important stuff.
Yeah, it's not just like, well, what should the capital gains rate be? It's like, do we live or die? I don't know. Let's consult Nikki Haley. So if you're asking, should we live or die and consulting Nikki Haley, clearly you don't care about the lives of your children. That's how I feel.
Not to try to get a preview or anything, but do you have interest of interviewing Xi Jinping? And if you do, how will you approach that?
I have enormous interest in doing that. Enormous. And a couple other people, and we're working on it.
Yeah, I should also say, like, it's been refreshing you interviewing world leaders. I think when I've started seeing you do that, it made me realize how much that's lacking.
Well, yeah, it's just interesting. I mean,
from even a historical perspective, it's interesting, but it's also important from a geopolitics perspective. So
well, it's really changed my perspective, and I've been going on about how American I am, and I think that's a great thing. I love America, but it's also, we're so physically, geographically isolated from the world, even though I traveled a ton as a kid, a lot, more than most people. But even now, I'm so parochial. I see everything through this lens, and getting out and seeing the rest of the world, to which we really are connected, like that's real, is vitally important. So I mean, at this stage, I don't, kind of need to do it, but I really want to, just motivated by curiosity and trying to expand my own mind and not be closed-minded and really see the fullest perspective I possibly can in order to render wise judgments. I mean, that's like the whole journey of life.
I was just hanging out with Rogan yesterday, Joe Rogan, and, I mentioned to him that as me being a fan of his show, that I would love for him to talk with you. And he said he's up for it. Any reason you guys haven't done it already?
I don't know. I've only met Rogan once, and I liked him. I met him at the UFC in New York. He was with somebody a mutual friend of ours, and Rogan changed media. I mean, maybe more than anybody. And he did it. What I admire about Rogan without knowing him beyond meeting him that one time. I mean, I'm still in media, but I've always been in media. It's like not a great surprise. I'm doing what I've always done, just a different format. But Rogan, he's got one of those resumes that I admire. I like the guy who's like, I was a longshoreman, I was a short order cook, I was an astrophysicist, I was, what I mean? It's like, he's called a man of parts. And this guy was a fighter, a stand-up comic. He hosted some, Fear Factor. And how did he wind up at the vanguard of the deepest conversations in the country? How did that happen? So I definitely respect that. And I think it's cool. And Rogan is one of those people who just kind of came out of nowhere. No one helped him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
He was doing the thing that he loves doing, and it somehow keeps accidentally being exceptionally successful.
Yeah, and he's curious. Yeah. So that's the main thing. And there was a guy, without getting boring, but there was a guy I worked with years ago who kind of dominated cable news, Larry King. And everyone would always beat up on Larry King for being dumb. Well, I got to know Larry King well, and I was his fill-in host for a while. And Larry King was just intensely curious. He'd be like, why do you wear a black tie, Lex? He'd be like, because I like black tie. Why do you like black tie? No, everyone else wears a striped tie, but you wear a black one. Why? And he was really interested.
Yeah, genuinely so, yeah.
Totally. And I want to be like that. I don't want to think I know everything. That's so boorish and also false. You don't know everything. But I see that in Rogan. Mm-hmm. Rogan's like, rah, how does 100%. That work? And people will, and it's so funny how that's threatening to people. It's like Rogan will just sit there while someone else is, free-balling on some far-out topic, which, by the way, might be true. Probably truer than the conventional explanation. People are like, I don't know, how can he stand that? He had someone say the pyramids weren't built 3,000 years ago, but 8,000 years ago, and that's wrong. It's like, first of all, how do you know when the pyramids were built? Second, why do you care if someone disagrees with you? Like, what is that? This weird kind of like groupthink. It's almost like, fourth grade, there's always like some little girl in the front row who's like acting as the, kind of the teacher's enforcer. Like whip around and be like, sit down. Didn't you hear what Mrs. Johnson said? Sit down. That's like it's like the whole American media. How dare you ask that question? And Rogan just seems like completely on his own trip. Like he doesn't even hear it. He's like, well, really? When were the pyramids built? And I was like, oh, I love that.
Yeah, curiosity, open-mindedness.
Yes.
But, the thing I admire about him most, honestly, is that he's a good father. He's a good husband. He's a good family man for many years. And like that's his place where he escapes from the world to. And it's just beautiful.
Without that, man, you're destroyed.
Yeah.
If I had a wife who was interested at all in any way in what I did, I think I would have gone crazy by now. When we get home, she's like, how was your day? It was great. Oh, I'm so proud of you. That's the end of our conversation about what I do for a living. And that is such a wonderful and essential respite from, you said, how do I not become an asshole? To the extent I haven't, I kind of have. But how have I not been, transformed into a totally insufferable megalomaniac who like checking his Twitter replies every day or every minute? It's that. Yeah, you got to have the core of your life has to be solid and enduring and not just ephemeral and silly.
So the two of you have known each other for what, 40 years?
We've been together 40 years.
Together 40 years.
40 years, yeah, 1984. He was the hottest 15-year-old in Newport, Rhode Island.
Wow.
Sounds dirty, but I'm talking about myself. I was the hottest.
Yeah, you were just looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
Very nice. So what's the secret to a successful relationship, successful marriage?
I don't even know. I mean, no, I'm serious.
Yeah.
I got married in August 91, so it's our 33rd year of being married.
Fall with the collapse of the
Yeah. As noted. Yeah. So, you hear these people, it's actually changed my theology a little bit. Not that I have deep theology, but like I grew up in a society in Southern California when I was little that was like a totally self-created society. I mean, Southern California was the root of libertarianism for a reason. It was like, that's where you went to recreate yourself. And so the operative assumption there is that you are the sum total of your choices and that free will is everything. And we never consider questions like, well, why do children get cancer? Like, what do they do to deserve it? Well, of course, nothing, right? Because that would suggest that maybe you're not the sum total of your choices matter. If I smoke a lot, I might get lung cancer. If I use fentanyl, I may OD. Got it. If I don't exercise, I might get fat. Okay. But like on a bigger scale, you're not only the sum total of your choices. Like things happen to you that you didn't deserve, good and bad. And marriage is, and I'll speak for myself, in my case, just one of them. And I could say, clearly spending time with the person you're married to, talking, enjoying each other. I have a lot of rituals. We have a lot of rituals that ensure that. But in 40 years, like you're like a different person. I like did drugs. I was drinking all the time when we met. It's been a long time since I've done that. I'm very different, and so is she, but we're different in ways that are complementary and happy. We've never been happier. So, like, how do we pull that off? Just kind of good luck, honestly. And then I see other people. No, I'm not kidding, but that's true. I think it's so important not to flatter yourself if you've been successful at something. The thing I've been most successful at is marriage, but it's not really me. I haven't.
So I think what you're indirectly communicating is it's like humility, I think.
It's not even humility. Humility is the result of a reality-based worldview.
Sure.
Okay.
Right.
Once you see things clearly, then you know that you are not the author of all your successes or failures. And I hate the implication otherwise because it suggests powers that people don't have. It's one of the reasons I always hated the smoking debate or the COVID debate. Someone would die of COVID and didn't have the vaccine. They'd be like, see, this is what you get. You smoke cigarettes, you die. Well, shit, if you smoke cigarettes, you're more likely to get lung cancer. If you don't, if you get whatever. Cause and effect is real. I'm not denying its existence. It's obvious. But it's not the whole story. There are larger forces acting on us, unseen forces. That's just a fact. You don't need to be some kind of religious nut. And they act on AI too, and you should keep that in mind. The idea that
the same way you said that.
No, it's true. It's demonstrably true. We're the only society that hasn't acknowledged the truth of that. And the idea that the only things that are real are the things that we can see or measure in a lab, like that's insane. That's just dumb.
In the religious context, you have this two categories that I really like, that of the two kinds of people, people who believe they're God and people who know they're not, which is a really interesting division that speaks to humility and a kind of realist worldview of where we are in the world.
Oh,
can atheists be in the latter category?
No. There are very few atheists. I've never actually met one. There are people who pose as atheists, but no one's purely rational. And everyone, I mean, this is a cliche for a reason, everyone under extreme stress appeals to a power higher than himself because everyone knows that there is a power higher than himself. So really, it's just people who are gripped with the delusion that they're God. No one actually believes that. If you're God, jump off the roof of your garage and see what happens. You know what I mean? No one actually thinks that. But people behave as if it's true. And those people are dangerous. And I will say, by contrast, the only people I trust are the people who know their limits. And I was thinking actually this morning in my sauna, of all the people I've interviewed or met, this is someone I never interviewed, but I have talked to him a couple of times. The greatest leader I've ever met in the world is literally a king. It's MBZ Sheikh Mohammed of Abu Dhabi, who is Muslim. I am definitely not Muslim. I'm Christian, Protestant Christian. And so I don't agree with his religion and I don't agree with monarchies. But he's the best leader in the world that I've ever met. And by far, it's like not even close. And why is that? Well, I could bore you for an hour on the subject, but the reason that he's such a good leader is because he's guided by an ever-present knowledge of his limitations and of the limits of his power and of his foresight. And when you start there, when you start with reality, it's not even humility. Humility can be a pose, like, oh, I'm so humble. Okay. Humble brag is a phrase for a reason. It's like way deeper than that. It's just like, no. Do I have magical powers? Can I see the future? No. Okay. That's just a fact. So I'm not God. But I've never seen anybody more at ease with admitting that than MBZ. Just a remarkable person. And for that reason, he is like treated as an oracle. I don't think people understand the number of world leaders who traipse through his house or palace to seek his counsel. I'm not sure that there is a parallel since, I don't want to get too hyperbolic here, but honestly, since like Solomon, where people come from like around the world to ask what he thinks. Now, why would they be doing that? Because Abu Dhabi's military is so powerful. I mean, he's rich, okay, massive oil and gas deposits, but like for a lot of, so's Canada. You know what I mean? And no one is coming to Ottawa to ask Justin Trudeau what he thinks. No, it's humility. That's where wisdom comes from. You start to think like, so I spent my whole life like mad at America's leadership class because it's not just Biden or the people in official positions. It's the whole constellation of advisors and throne sniffers around them. And it's not even that I disagree with them. I'm not impressed by them. I'm just not impressed. They're not that capable, right? So that's what I was saying about Nikki Haley. I don't think Nikki Haley's the most evil person in the world. I think she's ridiculous, obviously. And everyone's like, oh, Nikki Haley or Mike Pompeo. What?
Great leaders are so rare that when you see one, you know it right away.
It blows your mind. And what blows my mind about Sheikh Mohammed in Abu Dhabi is that everyone in the world knows it. And I've never seen a story on this. I'm not guessing. I know this is true because I've seen it. Everyone in the world knows it. And so if there's a conflict, he's the only person that people call. Like everybody calls the same guy. And it's like he runs this tiny little country, the UAE. I mean, in Abu Dhabi, there are a bunch of emirates, but he's the president of the country. But still, And it's got a ton of energy and all that, wealth and all that. And Dubai's got great real estate and restaurants, but really it's a tiny little country that wasn't even a country 50 years ago. So how did that happen? Purely on the basis of his humility and the wisdom that results from that humility. That's it.
What advice would you give to young people? You got 4. You somehow made them into great human beings. What advice would you give to people in high school?
Have children immediately.
Oh, that?
Including in high school. Yes. I think that's all that matters. Like in the end, again, these aren't even cliches anymore because no one says them. But when I was a kid, people always say, on your deathbed, you never wish you spent more time at work. And I mean, everyone said that. It was like one of these things. And now I don't think Google allows you to say that. It's like, no, you're going to wish you spent more time at work. Get back to your cube. But I can't overstate from my vantage how true that is. Nothing else matters but your family. And if you have the opportunity, and a lot of people are being denied the opportunity to have children, and this messing with the gender roles, and I'm not even talking about the tranny stuff. I mean, feminism has so destroyed people's brains and the ability of young people to connect with each other and stay together and have fruitful lives. It's like nothing's been more destructive than that. It's such a lie. It's so dumb. It's counter to human nature, and nothing counter to human nature can endure. It can only cause suffering, and that's what it's done. But fight that. Stop complaining about it. Find someone. By the way, everyone gets together, most people get together on the basis in a Western society where there's no arranged marriages, they get together on the basis of sexual attraction. Totally natural. Get off your birth control and have children. Oh, I can't afford that. Well, yeah, you'll figure out a way to afford it once you have kids. It's like it's chicken and the egg, but it's actually not. When you have responsibility, when you have no choice, this is true of men. I'm not sure if it's true of women, but it's definitely true of men. You will not achieve until you have no choice. As I always think of men do nothing until they have to. But once they have to, they will do anything. That is true. Men will do nothing unless they have to, but once they have to, they will do anything. I really believe that from watching and from being one. And I would never have done anything if I didn't have to, but I had to. And I would just recommend it. And but by the way, even if you don't succeed, and even if you're poor, having spent my life among rich people, I grew up among rich people. I am a rich person. Boy, are they unhappy. Well, that's clearly not the road to happiness. You don't want to be a debt slave or starve to death or anything like that. But like making $1 billion, that's not worth doing. Don't do that. Don't even try to do that. If you create something that's beautiful and worth having and you make $1 billion, okay, then you have to deal with your $1 billion, which will be the worst part of your life, trust me. But seeking money for its own sake is a dead end. What you should seek for its own sake is children. Talk about a creative act. Last thing I'll say, the whole point of life is to create, okay? The act of creation, which is like dying in the West, in the arts, and in its most pure expression, which is children, that's all that's worth doing while you're alive, is creating something beautiful. And creating children, by the way, it's super fun. It's not hard. I can get more technical off the air if you want.
Can you? Yeah, please.
I have a lot of thoughts on it.
Do you have documents or something?
No, I could draw you a schematic.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, that's the greatest thing. And the fact that corporate America denies, freeze your eggs, have an abortion. What? You're evil. Are you kidding? Because you're taking from people the only thing that can possibly give them enduring joy. And they are successfully taking it from people. And I hate them for it.
You founded TCN, Tucker Carlson Network.
Yeah.
What's your vision for it?
I have no vision for myself or my career, and I never have. So I'm like the last person to explain.
Just roll with it.
Yeah, I'm an instinct guy, 100%. I have a vision for the world, but I don't have a vision for my life or my career. So really, my vision extended precisely this far. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. And there was a 5-hour period where I wondered if I would be able to, because I feel pretty spry and like alert, and I'm certainly deeply enjoying what I'm doing, which is talking to people and saying what I think and learning, constantly learning. But I just wanted to keep doing that. And so, and I also wanted to employ the people who I worked with at Fox. I've worked with the same people for years and I love them. And so I had, all these people and I wanted to bring them with me. So we had to build a structure for that.
But this feels like one of the first times you're really working for yourself. Like there's an extra level of freedom here.
Totally. And the good, I'm not you don't want me doing your taxes. Like, I'm good at some things, but I'm really not good at others. So, and one of them would be like running a business. Like, no idea. I'm not interested. Not a commerce guy, so I don't buy anything. So it's like the whole thing I'm not good at. But luckily, I'm really blessed to have friends who are involved in this who are good at that. So I feel positive about it. But mostly, I'm totally committed to only doing the things that I am good at and enjoy, and not doing anything else because I don't want to waste my time. And so I'm just getting to do what I want to do, and I'm really loving it.